on the bomb, on the line to fight for justice and freedom. Maybe we're overstating that, but we're gonna have that dialogue. And then the President Trump is trying to rewrite history. Obviously, we know that's what neo-fascists do, blocking money for the Smithsonian, and especially targeting the Blacksonian, as it is called, the African American Museum that a lot of people have been working over decades to get under the umbrella of the Smithsonian. I have been there, Doc. I'm not sure if you've been there, but I've been there several times. It is quite a testament to part of our history. And a lot of people invested a lot of time, money, and energy. And then for this president to say, you know what, we're going to defund it and we're going to tell American history. I think he missed the class where it was made clear that African American history or Black history is America's history, but maybe he missed that lesson. Not sure, but we're going to unpack all of that. Before we get to it, the doctor's in the house. Dr. Cornel West, what is on your heart, your soul, and your mind?
My dear sister, I'm just glad to be in the land of the breathing, in my right mind, at least 4 days of the week, the other 3 still and laughing and swinging. But I've been thinking very much about Shakespeare's Prince Hamlet, the philosopher Prince. One of the great insights of Shakespeare's masterpiece is that he's wrestling with how could it be that Hamlet is so brilliant, he's so smart, he's so sharp, he's so sophisticated, yet he suffers from the inability to love. So even when he finally makes his decision to engage in an act of revenge to kill his uncle who was married his mother 1 month after his father died, that there's no love there. But when the ghost appears in the form of his father to Hamlet, there's no love from father to son. When he relates to his mother, Gertrude, there's no love of Gertrude to son. And I thought about that in terms of the professional class, not just the white, but the professional class of all colors in this pain empire. No matter how smart and sophisticated and sharp they seem to be with all their degrees, all of their training, all of their credentials, when it's time to take a stand with courage and consistency, there's no spiritual there. There's no moral content there. And love is the very thing that enables so many of the other virtues, in the same way courage enables the other virtues. And love and courage go together. You can't love without courage. That's why God can't use cowards.
Yeah.
That you have to be able to muster the courage to love, but you must have some cultivated capacity to love in order to be courageous, because you got to believe something is worth fighting for, something is worth sacrificing for, something bigger than your ego, your agenda, your career is worth serving others for. And I'm glad to see Brother Corey do his thing. Brother Corey Anthony Booker. I've known him for so many years, and of course he's a Rhodes Scholar. He went to Stanford undergrad. Was a wonderful football player and brilliant student, but he also went to Yale Law. And I'm wondering, all those hours that he had, what did he say? Did he fellow lawyers who were cowardly? Did he say a word about genocide in Gaza, what has to do with the sophisticated foreign policy analysts who can't raise their voices and talk about massive massacres of children? I want to know what the brother said. Now, I heard just a little bit on television. I'm glad he broke the record of the gangster white supremacy.
Yeah, Strom Thurmond, Dixiecrat.
Absolutely. I'm glad he broke that record. I'm glad he did stand up. And I have a love for Brother Corey because I just know him for so long. We used to break bread with Brother Bob Gerard and Bill Howard and Peter Harvey and so forth regularly when we were all in New Jersey. So I love the brother. I think I told you before, I supported his campaign, even though I was critical of many of his policies, because he's a decent person. And he's an but he's got that neoliberal captivity still operating too often which is symptomatic of his party, the leaders in his party. So I was glad to see him stand up, but I was thinking of these larger issues. Wall Street capitulating, President of Columbia and Harvard, even Princeton now capitulating. Everywhere you go, you see cowardly capitulation of the professional classes to the escalating fascism. And that is in no way encouraging. Not at all. And I think Shakespeare wrestling, writing, creating Hamlet was his way of having this powerful critique of folk who ascend so high intellectually, but morally, spiritually, still scared, intimidated, running around terrified and afraid. We've got to be able to straighten our backs up. We got to be able to bear witness. And that for me is the qualitative difference between Socrates and Jesus. Socrates argued, never shed a tear, never cried. Anybody who's never shed a tear, never cried, never loved anybody. Socrates stood up courageously, not based on a love of others, but based on his sense of vocation. Jesus weeps because he loves people. He runs up just because he loves the poor. He doesn't hate the rich. He hates avarice. He hates greed. Jesus weeps because he's a love warrior at the deepest level. That's what's the best of Black folk. We've been producing love warriors, freedom fighters. The question now becomes, where are they?
Where are they? That is the question that we must wrestle with. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. When we come forward, we will continue wrestling.
Speaking truth to power and to the powerless. This is Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving Black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% Black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of Black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of Black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting, on Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate Day 100 since the wildfires flared up, and we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 Days and Counting Town Hall, Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Bring spring to your door with Target Circle 360. Get all you need for Easter hosting, spring get-togethers, and more with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. From Easter basket goodies to fresh florals, getting everything the same day is easy. Open the Target app and bring the magic of the season to your door with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. Visit target.com/circle or the Target app for more details. Subscription required. Same-day delivery is subject to terms. Applies to orders over $35.
To thine own self be true. More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner coming your way right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, you always got to start with your own self. So, Doc, for those who are just joining us, welcome. Those who come forward with us, we really do appreciate you. Doc, you opened up giving Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, as the example. No love between mother and son, no love between father and son, that love and courage absolutely go together. My 3 takeaways: there's no spiritual there as we look onto the political horizon, not each and every politician, but just generally speaking, love enables other virtues, love and courage go together. And there is a larger capitulation that is going on in the country, bigger than what Senator Booker did last night, which is definitely notable. I mean, for the Democrats to stand up and do something, and for him to really, definitely put his body out there on the line. I mean, 25-hour speech he gave. That's a long time, Doc. 25 hours. And he breaks the 68-year-old Senate record that was held by a segregationalist Dixiecrat Strom Thurmond, who gave a speech in 1957 for 24 hours and 18 minutes to oppose the Civil Rights Act. Now, at the height of when Senator Booker was speaking, there were about 350 million people watching live likes on TikTok, I should say, and 115,000 people were watching on live stream. So 350 million likes on TikTok and 115,000 people who were watching it live on YouTube. And Senator Booker spanned the whole gamut, really indicting the Trump administration and the GOP's administration's plan and proposals, from healthcare to taking away from healthcare to not really doing anything about inflation, to Social Security, Medicaid. He read letters from his constituents. He spanned the whole gamut, and he wiped tears from his eyes at a certain point. He did quote the late, great Congressman John Lewis, when Congressman John Lewis talked about getting into good trouble. So hopefully this is the start of something wonderful, some type of other actions by the Democratic Party that is more than just symbolic, because make no mistake, this was symbolic and it was an important symbol. Sometimes symbols are important, and the Democratic faithful are calling to see something actionable by Democrats, which is why, Doc, this is so notable, because the Democrats have just been rolling over. So people who want to see something are grasping for even something like this.
No, that's true. That's true. And as I said before, I didn't get a chance to hear my 25 hours, so I could really listen to the content of what he had to say. The beautiful thing that he stood up, but if he took all of that time and just had talking points within a neoliberal framework that didn't say a mumbling word about poverty, mass incarceration, or genocide in Gaza, then you end up just reproducing the talking points of the Democratic Party plantation. You got to be critical that cuts across partisanship. It's one thing to come in swinging at neo-fascist Republicans, but if you can't say a mumbling word about neoliberal Democrats, then you end up just reinscribing yourself in the same zone, in the same place. And this time it takes 25 hours, where another speech would have been 2 minutes or 10 minutes. So that I didn't hear what he had to say. And I was praying for his physical health, because he ain't no spring chicken. You know, he's born in April 27th, so he's going to be 69. So he's going to be 56 years old in a couple of weeks. So I pray for my brother, because I love him. But at the same time, as long as he's thrive within the being the party man for a Democratic Party that's sinking, then Schumer and them gonna pat him on the back and say, "Oh, this was wonderful." Well, now you got to be critical of Schumer. Hey,
Sure.
where's
No.
where's the justice? This ain't just a party operation. You see what I mean? There's got to be issues that are bigger than just your party. Now he may have done that. I don't know. My hunch didn't, but I don't know. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. But that's the kind of thing that we need if we really gonna fight neo-fascism. You can't just fight neo-fascism by just following what the Democratic Party say. No. It's not gonna happen.
Definitely agree, Doc. And more than one thing can be true at one time, and you're just bringing it. I did not hear the senator's entire speech. I just heard snippets of it. So I cannot say whether he critiqued the Democratic Party and war and those kinds of things. You're right. We would definitely have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Some, though, of what he said, I have one quote here where, and I quoting Senator Cory Booker from the great state of New Jersey. He said, in just 71 days, the president has inflicted harm after harm on Americans' safety, financial stability, the foundations of our democracy, and any sense of common decency, end quote. And I know that the senator has talked a lot about common decency. He goes on to say, there are not normal times in our nation, and they should not be treated as such in the United States Senate. These are not normal times. And on that point, absolutely, these are not normal times, and they should not be treated as such, end quote, for the senator. Now, so far, the president and the co-president, Elon Musk, have not made a comment so far about what the senator has done. We know that will be coming out soon. I'm sure they can't wait to say something about what he was able to do. And so, yeah, I mean, people are excited about it, Doc, but you going deeper. Now, some of this reported from NPR, some 8 hours after that, as Booker was talking, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer broke in to ask him a question, as a rotating cast of Democrats have been doing all day. That's part of the strategy and the technique. I want the people joining us to understand why they would do that, because there was some kerfuffle on social media saying, how dare they interrupt him? That's part of the strategy to do that, for what they were doing, to make his speech more of an exchange than a monologue, to give him something to feed off of. It is 24 hours is a long time to be doing anything. To quote the senator again, I just want to tell you a question. Do you know what you have just or Schumer saying, do you know you've just broken the record? Do you know how proud this caucus, to your point, Doc, this caucus is of you? This is Senator Schumer speaking. Do you know how proud America is of you? Senator Schumer asked, as the room burst into applause, a lengthy round of applause. Booker, looking moved, wiped his face with tissue and put his hand over his heart. So in some ways, there are layers to this. One layer is the Democrats needed to show that they were doing something, and I'm not minimizing it because I'm putting air quotes, but you're making a larger point, Doc, so I want to pull that in. Also, the historic semblance of breaking the record of a segregationalist, Strom Thurmond, who filibustered for over 24 hours against the Civil Rights Act. He was a Dixiecrat, which means he was a Democrat. Democrats don't like that to be said, but on True Time, we're going to tell you the truth. That's who Strom Thurmond was. That's the party he was a part of, the party of segregationists, the party of the slaveholder. Those are the facts. So then, Doc, the other layer is beyond this speech, beyond breaking the record, beyond giving some of the Democratic faithful a little more juice to carry on. What are Democrats going to do with this moment that is more substantive? Is that?
That's right. That's true. That's exactly right. And I would think, though, that anytime, Brother Schumer is patting you on the in an excessive way, you need to check yourself. Because he is dead up establishment. He's dead up Democratic Party establishment. So that when you ask him about how Biden was doing, he ain't gonna tell the truth. You ask him about his relation to Wall Street, he's got intimate relations. You ask him genocide, denies us even genocide. He wants to give Israel even more money to kill more of the kids. You see what I mean? So he doesn't have any moral standing in that sense, even though he's been a leader in the Democratic Party for a long time. And he's on certain civil rights legislation that's admirable, but it's within a very narrow neoliberal framework, you see. So that I think when my dear brother Corey finishes speaking for 25 hours, it's like Coltrane wondering, Charlie Bird, how did I do? He got to raise the question, Martin King, how did I do? Miles, how did I do? Fannie Lou Williams, how did I do? Did I tell the truth, or was I up here for 25 hours just reiterating talking points of the Democratic Party? That's the highest standard. Schumer is not the standard.
Yeah.
At all. Curtis Mayfield ain't looking to Pat Boone to find out how did I do. No. Curtis want to know what Jerry Butler thinks. Jerry Butler, how did I sound? You sound good, Curtis, but I noticed you hit that note. Ooh, I'm gonna get better. And that's one of the things we're doing right now with our dear brother Corey. We just letting him know what the standard is, even after 25 hours. What is for truth, what the standard is for justice, and most importantly, unlike Hamlet, what the standard is for love. You see, after finished speaking for 25 hours, did poor people and working people and black people and others feel as if you spoke out of love from the depths of your soul? I don't see that from Schumer and the other folk in your party.
Yeah. So if this was just tactic and not substance, that's really what you're getting at. I mean, that's a serious question they're going to have to ask, because even the rest of the business that took place in the Senate after his speech, I mean, Democrats just left and they didn't put up a fight on the other stuff that was going on. I mean, I hate to tell our folks this, but this is the stuff that drives Doc and I crazy. I mean, you could have blocked some stuff, put up a fight, but you just gave it. And I'm not just talking about Senator Booker. I mean, after 25 hours, I know he tired, passed the baton to somebody else, but the Democrats could have fought against some other stuff.
That's
within
right.
that same in that same kind of segment, if you will, of what was happening. But they were so giddy about, like, I'm just proving your point right now.
I'm just glad he's in good physical health. You know what I mean? I'm praying for he and his loved ones in terms of his physical health, but in terms of major forces for truth and justice, ooh, Lord have mercy. Stood up, but what was the content of your stand, and what was the substance of those words flowing through your mouth? That's the fundamental question.
Yeah, true that. Now, some of the stuff, the Medicaid, the tariffs, national security, veterans, agriculture, housing, all of those things we know President Trump is upending, and they should be talked about.
Absolutely.
Pressure should be put on this administration not to cut the legs out from under the most vulnerable people in this country. None of that stuff necessarily resonates with Trump, but Doc, that's some of the things that came up between him and his colleagues. The Black Caucus joined the senator. I'm hesitating here because I'm just trying to think that, for me, and somebody who analyzed this, again, you ran for president, talking about put your body on the line. You did put your body on the line. I'm just trying to think if, and no shade to what Senator Booker did. And I want people to understand that it is important what he did. What, Doc, you got this saying, it's important, but not necessarily, what do you say? It's important, but it's something else you put in terms of the depth of it,
Mm-hmm.
So had they put up this fight against Sinema and Manchin when the Democrats controlled everything, we might not have had Trump 2.0. This is what I want people to understand. Had they put up the fight, had the Black Caucus joined Senator Booker to say, we will increase minimum wage, President Biden, we don't agree with you to blame this on the parliamentarian. Had they stood up collectively for the rights of those railroad workers who was stopped, prohibited from using the only leverage, the most important leverage, not the only leverage that they have, which is to stop their work when they were trying to get the robber barons of our day to allow them to take some paid sick leave.
That's right.
They didn't do any of that. George Floyd, all of that. So in context, in a larger context, we have a right to ask the question, was this purely performative? In a narrow context, talking about the layers, it was a necessary thing to do for some.
No, I think that's well.
That's it, Doc. You know what? When we come forward, dang, it's that time again. When we come forward, we will continue. You're listening to Truth Time.
The truth will set you free, but first it might raise your blood pressure.
I'm not driving you, baby.
More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner when we come forward.
I'm Doug Davis with 4 things you should know with BIN News. New York City Mayor Eric Adams' corruption case was dismissed after a federal judge approved the DOJ's request, citing claims of retaliation during Biden's presidency over Adams' stance on illegal immigration. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is recovering after a record-breaking 25-hour Senate speech protesting Trump administration policies, including tariffs and efforts to dismantle the Department of Education. Booker fasted beforehand to avoid interruptions. Police in Denver need your help in trying to find the suspect who shot and killed 31-year-old Naisha Jackson. Police are trying to find 35-year-old Keziah James as part of their investigation into the shooting. James is described as a 5'4" tall black woman with brown eyes and brown hair. If you know her whereabouts, contact Crime Stoppers. The New York Times reports Amazon is making a last-minute bid to buy TikTok. Many black business owners who rely on TikTok are crossing their fingers. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
When you visit the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, the way you see the world begins to change. You realize that the more you encounter amazing species, the more you can't imagine a world without them. San Diego Zoo Safari Park. See conservation from a new perspective.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Here's the major question facing the UCLA women's basketball team as they prepare for their Final Four matchup Friday against Connecticut. If the game comes down to decisions and adjustments, can UCLA coach Corey Close outcoach Gina Auriemma? On paper, the coaching battle looks like a mismatch. This is the first time Close has taken a team to the Final Four. Friday's game represents the 24th time Auriemma has led UConn to the Final Four. Auriemma has won 11 national titles at UConn and has had 6 undefeated seasons. Auriemma's experience with championships on the line is part of the reason why UConn is an 8.5-point favorite. How Close handles this pressure-packed moment could be a deciding factor for UCLA in their first Final Four appearance. UCLA and UConn tip off at 6 p.m. Friday night. Live coverage on ESPN. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community, educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit CASMPvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Oh, yeah, we are at that intersection of love and truth. If you are just joining us, welcome. If you have come forward with us, we really do appreciate you. In Dr. West's opening, he overlaid Shakespeare's Hamlet as our foundational piece. Love, and no, love enables other virtues. Love and courage go together. And there is a larger capitulation that we have got to deal with in the United States of America and this world. There is no spiritual there for so many of our elected leaders. And Doc, painfully, that is the truth. For those that do have a spiritual core, we thank you for that, because there's some riders out there, Doc. There's some freedom fighters out there for sure. So we talked about Senator Cory Booker's 25-hour making him the senator who was given the longest speech, I should say, in the history of the United States Senate, beating out the record of Dixiecrat/Democrat Strom Thurmond, who filibustered for over 24 hours against civil rights for Black people in this country. Oh yeah, the man did indeed do that. So that as we will see if the Democrats in fact have learned a lesson from this. I mean, immediately after they had not, as I chuckle to say that, and sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying. Hopefully they will learn a larger lesson and understand that this is bigger than just pretty speeches and words, that they have got to get out there and work hard to change material conditions, especially when they do have the political power. And again, no shade towards Senator Booker. So glad that he did what he did. I shouted him out, Doc, on social media. We shouted him out yesterday. I'm glad that he did that. Now he has the authority, I would think, to push his party further.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. I mean, some people are viewing this as his bid to move into the highest level of leadership in the certainly has the visibility. It's certainly sees the imagination of a lot of American citizens, and the question becomes what he will do with it. But it is worth noting that You think about that. Strom Thurmond, you know, he's a segregationist, he's a Dixiecrat, but he's also a white supremacist. And he's also a supporter of U.S. terrorism. See, Jim Crow and Jane Crow was a form of terrorism. We got all this talk about terrorists here, terrorists there, terrorists in the Middle East, terrorists in Asia. And now, U.S. terrorism is as American as apple pie. Slavery, U.S. terrorism. Jim and Jane Crow was a form of U.S. terrorism. Would Strom Thurmond take a stand against lynching of black people? No. Well, that makes him a terrorist. Now, can you imagine one of the most influential senators of the 20th century who has the longest speech on the floor of the Congress, and it was a weak civil rights bill? This is 1957. This is not 1964.
That's right. That's right.
The 1957 civil rights bill was as weak as pre-sweet and Kool-Aid, the way my dear brother Ren Troy Brown would put it with his eloquence. And he still gives that long speech. Now, that's precisely the thing that Trump and the others don't want the reality to become manifest in the Smithsonian. They don't want to tell those truths in schools. They don't want to tell those truths in educational institutions. What did they say? We don't want divisive concepts in American history teaching. Now, how in the world are you going to talk about truth in American history and not say a word about genocide with indigenous peoples, not say a word about slavery and lynching of black people? Oh, that's divisive. It is divisive, but it's truthful.
That's right. That's right, Doc. I mean, how do you think the people who had to endure that felt? You can't endure a little what you call divisiveness. The people who had to live through it. You want to talk about
precious ancestors, their suffering doesn't count.
Yeah.
Their hurt doesn't matter. No. Brother Corey and others raising their voices. We got to raise our voices. And the thing about Brother Corey is, I think in many ways, he really is a die-in-the-wool neoliberal. So he's not being false to himself, to that own self. True, says Shakespeare in Polonius's words. And he believes deep down in his heart in a neoliberal America. That's what he believes. And he's got a right to believe that. I just think he doesn't. I think he's wrong about other things. He thinks I'm wrong. We know we wrestle with it as brothers and so forth. But he's posing and posturing, he really does believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, you know, he does what he does based on what he believes. It's just that what he believes doesn't cut deep enough in the depth of the suffering, be it in the south side, on the south side of Chicago or south central Los Angeles, or be it in Gaza.
Yeah, Congo, Haiti, Yemen. I mean, you name
it. That's right.
We sign deeply. We're going to go to a few of our, it's jumping in the chat per usual. We're going to lift up some of the folks who have taken out of their precious time to spend time with us, Doc, live. So we got Blessed Peacemaker in the house per usual. Hey, lovely people. Love you all on Truth Time. We loving you back, Blessed Peacemaker. Morris Phillips. Good afternoon, Senator Turner and Dr. West. You give America hope. Thank you for that, Brother Phillips. We appreciate that. We got Selena Ricks, Dr. West with a hand clap emoji next to it. And Morris Phillips commenting on, what we were saying. Is this theater? Is it not theater? He said it's all theater. And then HW comes in. Is it this theater? I guess he was referring to our Truth Time show. I'm intimating here of what he's coming up with. No, we giving people some truth to be able to think and to weigh in on this. And so, Doctor, it goes on and on and on. Morris Phillips asked, so there's a bantering back and forth by some of the people who are with us about third parties. And so they're going back and forth saying, look, Dr. West did run as an independent. And, that was a very necessary thing to do, that the two-party system represents the status quo. You got Sister Selena Ricks in here saying we need a third party. We need third-party candidates because the two-party system is about status quo. More of the same, especially to Black Americans. That's based on history. We need we need Wes. We need Wes. So basically, hey Doc, we need you.
Well, we need you and we need them and we need all of our precious everyday people and ordinary folk. We're all in it together.
Yeah, we are all in it together. So we thank you all so much. And I love the fact that they're not just talking to us, Doc, they're actually talking to each other and forming a type of community too. I've noticed. We got some regulars, and we have some new people dip in every now and then we got some people who are totally not with the program, putting their stuff in too. And so we put out what they put out as well. Look, we're here to tell the truth and analyze. Everybody doesn't have to think the same. There's a proverb, I think it's a Chinese proverb, that says if two people always agree, one is not needed. Wrap your mind around that as we come forward. We will continue. You are listening to Truth Time.
It's Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
At Providence, health equity is the foundation of our community health initiatives, ensuring care reaches those who need it most. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in America. African Americans face a higher risk of life-threatening issues like hypertension, the #1 cause of stroke. 55% of Black adults have high blood pressure. The good news is 80% of heart disease is preventable with healthy lifestyle changes and patient-centered care provided by the Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. From routine screenings to advanced procedures, Providence provides comprehensive care for the heart conditions that overly impact our community by ensuring patients receive treatments tailored to their needs. Let's stop the trend of being 30% more likely to die from heart-related problems. Take charge of your heart health with world-class cardiologists who deliver the compassionate care you deserve. Visit providence.org/SoCalHeart. That's providence.org/SoCalHeart to request an appointment.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready? Drop it! Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. We know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Truth crushed to earth shall rise again. You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
It absolutely will rise again. I've had time as we have come forward to really engage in our chat. So there's an interesting debate going on between Morris Phillips and HW, who does not see the validity in third-party campaigns. He believes that it is raising people's hopes for things that will not happen. And he's not the only person that feels that way. Morris Phillips is saying, no, you're wrong. We got folks in here saying, well, Sister Selena Ricks, hope alive. And she put a hashtag, hope on a tightrope. I like that. Hope. Sometimes hope is on a tightrope. That's a Can you visualize that? Hope on a Tightrope.
Lord, no, that's the book I was blessed to do with Brother Tavis many years ago. And we even had a radio show as well called Hope on the Tightrope. You remember that?
Yeah.
Mostly, indeed. No, but I mean, I think the reality is you're never able to vote your way through fundamental social change. Not at all. And if that were the case, that the ruling class would make voting illegal. Voting is just one weapon among a whole host of other weapons. But if you don't have courage and compassion who are willing to organize, mobilize, bring power and pressure to bear on an unjust status quo on every level, artistic, social, political, spiritual, religious, economic, that's what the transfer of and the sharing of resources. And that's called revolution, of course. Revolution is the sharing of resources. You got poor people and you got rich people. Poor people need resources. They need resources shared. And usually you have to have some movement, some motion for that sharing to take place, some redistribution to take place. And that usually has some revolutionary spirit behind it. So it's not just a matter of having another party or voting the right way. Voting is one form of weaponry among a host of other forms.
Yeah, and I mean, I hear HW. I mean, he's basically, or whoever HW is, HW, really critiquing whether or not people running as third party are out there just grifting because they're out there fighting for things that they know will never happen. I just want to flip that on its side to say that the duopoly is in control of our minds. Like, you have two private corporations who purely control elections in the United States of America. And elections are supposed to be a public exercise. And so now they're working on our mind and convincing us that candidates like you and others who dare to challenge the status quo are somehow out of step and promising people things that we know will never happen. Meanwhile, in other industrialized nations, the very things that you were talking about on the campaign trail and other enlightened folks is happening right now. Universal health care happening, paid medical leave happening, paid paternity and maternity leave, like understanding that the mother and the father play a role and they both should be off to see that baby through, certain months within that child's life. That is happening in real time in other industrialized nations. So I just don't, I guess in some ways I do understand, Doc, but it's quite disappointing that people are so convinced and accept the lesser instead of accepting a broader vision for what working class people in the United States of America deserve.
Oh, and what you're saying is so true. We talked yesterday about child labor laws. Well, if the folk didn't believe somehow that they could crush the child labor realities with laws, and people said, no, you don't have a chance. Neither party's interested. Neither party was interested. You had to have a social movement in the party. One of those parties had to respond. My dear brother, my brother Cliff West reminds me all the time. If people say there's no room for truth and love and justice, then what are we talking about? The only reason why we still here is because folk in the past believed in truth, love, and justice. People thought they had the chance of a snowball in hell, but they did it anyway.
They did it anyway. When we come forward, we will continue talking about how we can do it anyway. You're listening to Truth Time.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their program. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cow Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Life blooms in beautiful ways. The Afia Center invites you to celebrate At the End with Red Gala, honoring the strength and resilience of Black women living with HIV. Join us for an evening of empowerment as we launch the Barbara Cambridge Scholarship and kick off Her Story Month with our theme, Life in Full Bloom. Your support helps create vital HIV programming and builds a future where every voice is heard and every story matters. The End with Red Gala, because every flower deserves to bloom. To learn more and to donate, visit theafiacenter.org.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Yes, indeed. So we talked a little bit about the defunding that is going on of museums because, as you mentioned earlier, this administration does not want the truth about this nation to be told, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that is the foundation of neo-fascism. They want to shape what the narrative is. There's a saying that if the hunter always tells the story, the lion's story is never told. And that is the situation that we are in right now. People must reject it. And so while we decry what the Trump administration is doing in this revisionist history, we must never forget that the power is in our collective hands, in our collective homes, our collective communities, churches, synagogues, mosques, where we can teach the truth about history. Doc, we've been here before, especially Black folks have been here before because it was against the law, both de facto and de jure. What that means is in reality and in law for Black folks to learn how to read or write or to be taught how to read and write, which on the contrary, on the flip side of that, shoots a hole in they're not smart enough because if we were not intellectually capable, they would not have had to try to block it de jure and de facto. This has remnants of that in real time.
Good news is that you can tell the truth without necessarily knowing how to write. You can tell the truth without necessarily having the right to read. Yeah. Spirituals. The stories told from mothers and fathers to the children, even when those children were sold in other parts of the country, you see, so that the truth train and the love train can still flow even among the people who don't have access to literacy. And a lot of times we got a whole lot of highly literate Negroes these days who's scared to tell the truth. Shoot, tell somebody to swing low, sweet chariot. We need some more swing low, sweet chariot Negroes. You said to me,
we're going to say amen or ouch.
That's how we got anyway. Anyhow, the great Paula Murray used to talk about anyhow and any way, make a way out of no way. How you gonna do it? Was for some of us it's Jesus, others got their other ways, but somehow we have been able, against the grain, despite evidence, to keep telling the truth, to keep loving, keep bearing witness, and to keep making sure that we got style and a smile in our hearts and souls.
That's it. Too many literate Negroes who lack courage. Y'all, we're going to put a pin in that. That's real. Doc is preaching. He throwing it down. If you have missed any part of this show, please download the KBLA Talk app. You want to do that. And you certainly can listen to Dr. Cornel West and myself and any of the fantastic shows on KBLA Talk 1580. Wherever you get your podcast. Doc, I'm thinking my Nina notes today is coming from Sister Helen Keller. Character cannot be developed in ease, she said. You got to go through some stuff, right, to get a little character. And I 100% agree with what she is saying there, that it is through the fire that character is developed. Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Thank you, Madam Helen Keller, for that. You've been listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. We want you to live on purpose, understand your purpose, and remember, titles are good, but purpose is better. Until next time.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
This is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I am particularly honored on this occasion that one of the most important figures in the latter half of the 20th century is our very special guest. I'm under particular pressure this morning because both my mother and father are listening and watching this program, and that's very unusual. When my parents call me and say, I understand that Mr. Johnson is going to be your guest today. And so I want you both to know that I am going to be watching the program, listening to the program. Mommy and Dad, I'm going to do my very best. Mr. George Johnson is the founder of Johnson Products Company, the maker of Ultra Sheen and Afro Sheen, the first Black-owned company to trade on a major stock exchange, the financial sponsor of Soul Train, the once first Black-owned company, not only to trade on the stock exchange, the largest Black-owned manufacturing company in the world. Known for his generosity around Chicago, around the United States, Mr. Johnson received numerous honors for the philanthropic contributions of the George E. Johnson Foundation and the George E. Johnson Education Fund, which awarded more than 1,000 college scholarships. In 1964, he founded Independence Bank, the first Black-owned financial institution to operate in Chicago in more than 30 years. He served on the boards of Chicago's Urban League, Commonwealth Edison, the Lyric Opera House, MetLife, Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Northwestern University, and Operation Push. A close and dear friend of the late Martin Luther King Jr. At the foundation of all of my father's contributions in human and civil rights, always present, has been Mr. George Johnson. Also joining us is the co-author of his new book, Afro Sheen. Here, he will talk about that book and some of the stories and anecdotes that are part of his amazing life. His co-author, Hillary Beard, has been a book collaboration specialist, helping leaders, visionaries, and creatives and game changers amplify their voice to empower humanity for more than 20 years. The author of more than 20 books published by each of the big 5 publishers, Hillary's clients have included Venus and Serena Williams, Angela Bassett, Courtney Vance, NASA's Katherine Johnson, and of course, Mr. George E. Johnson. She's the recipient of 2 NAACP Image Awards. Mr. George Johnson, my family's close and dearest friend, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. Happy to be.
It's such an honor. Hillary, welcome to the show as well. Hillary, you're going to have to unmute.
Can't hear.
Thank you so much for having me. I apologize.
It's our high privilege. Mr. Johnson, again, I'm so grateful because so many people may not fully appreciate that behind the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Operation Breadbasket, the wind beneath their wings was your consciousness and your willingness to put your money where your mouth was to fight for civil rights, human rights, and social justice. Mr. Johnson, share with us some of your early memories of when you came to meet Martin Luther King Jr.
It was in 1966. I had met with your father a couple of months before, and that was well, I'll tell you about how I got to know him. But Dr. King called me in between the times that I had a meeting with your dad and asked me for an appointment in November of 1966. We had just finished our new headquarters, a 30,000 square foot headquarters on the Dan Ryan Expressway. And when Dr. King came and he looked at that building and he looked at all the things that were going on around the building, and then when he stepped inside the building and he saw Francine Hurst, who was waiting for him on the upper level, and I was standing there also with Francine, and he had Bevels with him and a couple other people.
James Bevels.
But when he looked around, he said this is Black power.
Mm.
And that was a great compliment to me.
Mm.
Anyway, we had a wonderful luncheon. And in that luncheon, he asked me if I would help him to carry out a program in Chicago that had been very successful in Philadelphia. And he asked me if I could get together a bunch of serious businessmen, and he'd like to introduce Operation Breadbasket in our cafeteria. And I got the guys to come, about 30, maybe 30 or 35. And he introduced the program that he was intending to bring to Chicago called Operation Breadbasket. And at the same time, he introduced Jesse Jackson as the founding director of Operation Breadbasket. And that's how I started out with that's what happened when he visited me. And I was very supportive of Jesse already, and supportive of Operation Breadbasket. In fact, Operation Breadbasket not only helped other Black businessmen, it helped JPC also. We were able to get some of in fact, quite a few of our products into grocery stores where we had not had success in getting grocery stores to carry our Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen, and Ultra Wave hair culture, many of our products.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
This is Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, the Honorable George Johnson is our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda, a thriving Black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% Black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of Black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of Black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting, on Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate day 100 since the wildfires flared up, and we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting Town Hall, Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Bring spring to your door with Target Circle 360. Get all you need for Easter hosting, spring get-togethers, and more with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. From Easter basket goodies to fresh florals, getting everything the same day is easy. Open the Target app and bring the magic of the season to your door with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. Visit target.com/circle or the Target app for more details. Subscription required. Same-day delivery is subject to terms. Applies to orders over $35.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Today's special guest is Mr. George E. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Hillary, let me ask you a question just before I go back to my conversation with Mr. Johnson. And that is, it must have been an extraordinary feeling and opportunity for you to have the privilege of documenting his life. What was that like, and how extraordinary was it to you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an African proverb that states that when an elder dies, it's like a library burns down. And so 3 years ago, when this very much alive and vibrant, then 94-year-old African-American elder contacted me, I didn't know a whole lot about him, except that I sat between my mother's knees and had Afro Sheen, Ultra Sheen put on my hair every day. And when I turned a teenager, cut it and wore Afro Sheen, and about his business building during the 70s and 80s. But I knew I needed to drop everything and clear my plate. I needed to do two things. One, to help him recall and catalog and write about nearly 100 years of memories so that today's leaders, dreamers, strivers, and entrepreneurs can hear his stories directly from him while he's energetic and able to tell them directly. And then also to present the information in historical context so people today can understand the trailblazing nature of his accomplishments and also how incredible they were in the context of those times. So it was an amazing experience and an honor and a privilege of a lifetime.
Mr. Johnson, let me raise a question that might be a little bit risque, in that coming out of the 60s, I remember my father when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and the entire movement of some levels of Black power and I am somebody. But clearly, if there ever was a person who was sensitive to the image of Black men and Black women and how they presented themselves, their self-images of how they saw themselves coming out of the civil rights period, the grooming of their hair, the way in which they took care of themselves, there is probably no figure more responsible for Black pride in the history of our nation than the leadership that you've shown by the founding and the formation of your company, and the care with which you looked at Black men, Black women, and brought forward their beauty as well as their dignity. Your thoughts, Mr. Johnson?
Oh, thank you so much for those compliments. I responded to what was going on in our community. And for instance, in that meeting I had with Dr. King, at the same time, I was meeting with him and trying to help him. And incidentally, at that meeting, he also let me know that he wasn't able to make his payroll. And Independent Bank made him a loan of over $100,000.
Wow.
But
that's
anyway,
that's 1.2 million today.
Wow. Wow.
So while we were having a nice conversation, it was also in the back of my mind that Dr. King was kind of giving me a little problem with my business, with selling Ultra Sheen. And because he was preaching Black is beautiful and be yourself, and that shifted a lot of my customers from using hair straighteners or hair relaxers to being natural. So we jumped on right away and created Afro Sheen, and that saved us. That kept us growing instead of slowing us down. We with Afro Sheen on the market, and the way Vince Colors started the advertising behind Afro Sheen, it was really it was powerful, and it was a blessing.
In a real sense, it obviously had to be. And I have to remind people, we're not just talking about the products. We're talking about the pick. We're talking about the pick with the fist on it. I mean, we're talking about the fold up red, black, and green pick where you could put it completely in your pocket. I mean, all of that which every barber and beautician in the United States who handled Black hair, male and female beauticians and barbers, had to come by way of Mr. Johnson's very healthy psychological vision of us as a people. And that would lead to what? Your sponsorship of Soul Train. Share with us your relationship with Soul Train and some of the initial problems that it had finding a sponsor.
I had tried for a couple of years before we got involved with Soul Train to find a way to make television work for us. And it was not easy. And I'd like to tell you that we had a good result, but we didn't. I won't even go into the details about that. But those 2 hour variety shows that we produced were really very good. However, they weren't financially rewarding the way it ought to be. Anyway, the very first advertising agency I had an executive on my account named Tom Kuhn. And Tom called me one day and said, I have I think that's a program you ought to take a look at. And it was John Cornelius had a copy of Dick Clark's Bandstand, all black children on that show, and I looked at it and I thought it was great when I saw it, but when I saw it on TV, it was only in black and white, and it didn't have the same energy that I saw when I visited that program. Anyway, after meeting Don and talking to him, I decided I'd make a 30-minute color pilot. And when I saw that, I saw what I wanted to see. I saw the energy. I saw fabulous dancing, and I sat down with Don, and of course, Don didn't have any money at the time, but we formed a company, and he had half the company, and JPC had half the company, but I put up all the money. JPC put up all the money. And that's how Soul Train started. The program he had that was in black and white was not called Soul Train. While Don and I were getting together, he came up out of the blue with the title Soul Train. And that's how we started.
I want to remind our listeners that, Hillary, it wasn't just the dancing and the programming of Don Cornelius and Soul Train. It was also in the middle of the program, African-American entertainers, the Jackson Five, the Temptations, Gladys Knight, and the Pips, all of whom were product users of Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen, and taking advantage of the opportunity to showcase their own music live to tape. On a Saturday afternoon, I remember leaving Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push, and coming home, which Mr. Johnson, who not only supported Martin Luther King Jr.'s payroll, but largely supported my father's payroll as well. He gave Black culture an opportunity. Hillary?
Yeah. And not just in the United States, he helped all these artists that are classic artists that we all know now become known around the world. So he helped, his funding of Soul Train helped propel our culture, our arts, our music, our style, our fashion, our verve, all around the world. And I wanted to mention something about Ultra Sheen as well. A thing that we take for granted today, or perhaps not so much these days, is Black people's ability to access the professional part of the workforce. And I wanted to draw our attention to the fact that in 1970, which was around the time JPC went public and he sponsored Soul Train, only 5% of Black people were able to access the mainstream workplace, as opposed to 50% of white people. So Ultra Sheen and the ability for Black women to alter their appearance to make themselves look more like the people who were likely to hire them allowed Black women to access the mainstream workplace, and Black people to access mainstream America. And those images that you're talking about were so forward thinking that there were not Black people who were figure skaters at the time, but there were in Afro Sheen ads, right? Or Ultra Sheen ads. There were not as many Black authors. So I wondered, as I look back on the ads, whether I, as a young girl, got the idea that I could figure skate, which I did from looking at these ads. I'm an author, right? So in these ads, Black people were journalists, they were sculptors, they were flight attendants, which Black women weren't able to do at the time. And so both through the products, through employing Black people, through his generosity, which you're beginning to speak to, and through the forwarding of African-American life and culture, the dignity of us all around the world, Mr. Johnson was a tremendous trailblazer and groundbreaker in ways that we might take for granted today.
Speaking of being a pioneer and a trailblazer, so many African Americans may not realize that Mr. Johnson's company was the first major African American owned company to trade on the New York Stock Exchange. We have African American traders today. We have companies on the exchange today. Mr. Johnson, when you first broke down that door, I'm sure there were people who said that it couldn't be done.
Well, would you like me to speak about how we went public?
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. As we were growing in the 60s, we were growing by leaps and bounds. And we attracted the attention of the stockbrokers. And about 1967, I was visited by several. And one that appealed to me was Hornblower and Weeks. And they came with the idea that I should take the company public. It was not an easy decision, but that was a real solution for me in terms of my financial situation. All the money that we made, I kept it in the company. I didn't pay myself a salary. So I accumulated a lot of money in JPC. And I didn't want to pay myself a salary because at the time, personal income tax was between 60 and 71%. But they explained to me that if I went public, I could, whatever the money came from selling stock, that would be taxed at 28%. That made sense to me.
To all of us.
So it was a kind of a personal decision in that respect. Also, though, it also gave us the opportunity, if we needed it, to tap the capital market if we needed money to finance our growth. Fortunately, we didn't need that, but it did give me some financial stability.
Mr. Johnson, we have about 2 minutes before we come back from our forward break. Are there lessons that African Americans need to understand about the risks associated with entrepreneurship?
Repeat that, Jesse.
Risks that you had to take. You were willing to take risks to be a businessman.
Absolutely. But Jesse, I had no choice. I had no choice. In my view, the Lord put me in business, and I try, and as long as I stuck with the Lord the way I did, we prospered. And I would say, I really believe what I'm saying to you. I think that my opportunity to go into business was divinely ordained. To give you an example, the day before, and you might not understand what I'm saying unless you read the book, but the day before I met Orville Nelson, I was 25 years old. I had a wife. I had 2 children, a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. I was working 2 regular jobs and washing cars on the weekend and had no future. The next day, I'm getting ready. I'm at Fuller Products Company. I'm finishing my day's work there. And I get on the elevator at the 5th floor. The elevator stops on the 3rd floor. And this gentleman gets on the elevator. And when I looked at him, I blurted out without thinking, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And he said to me, "I came here because this is a Black company. And I wanted to see if I could get Mr. Fuller to make me a better product because the product I'm using is giving me a lot of difficulty."
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Mr. George Johnson. Mr. George Johnson, when we come forward, sir, we're going to pick right back up on that meeting that you had with S.B. Fuller.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
On the Davis with 4 things you should know with BIN News. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is black, praised the dismissal of his corruption case against him, calling it unjust. The case was tossed with prejudice by a federal judge following the DOJ's order to drop it just a day before Adams' Democratic primary filing deadline. The Supreme Court upheld the FDA's decision to deny approval for flavored e-cigarettes, overturning an appeals court ruling. Despite the FDA's denying of many vape-related products, flavored e-cigarettes remain available across the country, mainly in black neighborhoods. California, 2 proposed bills to ban transgender athletes from competing in female sports have been rejected. Assembly Bill 89 would have established a ban on athletes born as male to compete on a girls' interscholastic sports team. And former President Obama apologized for photobombing a family's cherry blossom photos during his morning walk at the Tidal Basin. The former president shared the moment on Instagram, writing, "I hope you enjoyed peak bloom. My bad for stepping into the shot." Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
When you visit the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, the way you see the world begins to change. You realize that the more you encounter amazing species, the more you can't imagine a world without them. San Diego Zoo Safari Park. See conservation from a new perspective.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Here's the major question facing the UCLA women's basketball team as they prepare for their Final Four matchup Friday against Connecticut. If the game comes down to decisions and adjustments, can UCLA coach Corey Close outcoach Gina Auriemma? On paper, the coaching battle looks like a mismatch. This is the first time Close has taken a team to the Final Four. Friday's game represents the 24th time Auriemma has led UConn to the Final Four. Auriemma has won 11 national titles at UConn and has had 6 undefeated seasons. Auriemma's experience with championships on the line is part of the reason why UConn is an 8.5-point favorite. How Close handles this pressure-packed moment could be a deciding factor for UCLA in their first Final Four appearance. UCLA and UConn tip off at 6 p.m. Friday night, live coverage on ESPN. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
This ad is brought to you by Care for the Injured, which is not a law firm. Past results don't guarantee future outcomes. Recovery depends on case details. Did you or a loved one take the birth control shot Depo-Provera and later develop a brain tumor? You are not alone. Thousands of women in the U.S. have been affected and deserve compensation. Depo-Provera, a widely used birth control injection, has been linked to serious brain tumors like meningiomas. If you use Depo-Provera for at least a year and were diagnosed with a brain tumor, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Our network of attorneys fight for the rights of women like you, women who were never warned about the risk of birth control shots. Our caring legal team is standing by to help you get the justice and compensation you deserve. The sooner you call, the sooner we can begin working on your case. Call 800-256-1276 now for a free confidential case review. That's 800-256-1276. Call 800-256-1276.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is none other than Mr. George Johnson, the founder of Johnson Products Company, one of the most unsung heroes in the 20th century, and yet one of the most pivotal. Behind Martin Luther King, there was George Johnson. Behind Jesse Jackson, there was George Johnson. Behind the campaign of Harold Washington to be mayor of the city of Chicago, Harold Washington. Behind Barack Obama and many others. Silent and a quiet voice, but a very, very forceful presence in the history of the United States, Mr. George Johnson. Mr. Johnson, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, just before the break, I'm sorry, sir.
I was going to pick up where I left off.
Oh, yes, sir. Just before the break, you were talking about being on that elevator.
Yes. And as I was saying, this gentleman let me know that he was trying to get S.B. Fuller Company to make a better product for him. But Mr. Fuller had to tell him that he didn't have any time to work, to do what he wanted to try to make him a better product. And he didn't intend to be in the barber business. So I said to him, I don't know what you're talking about, but I work in the lab. And if you have a card, give me your card. He did. And I got his card. And I said, I'll come by and see if I can help you. And I did eventually. Took about 2 months. But eventually I did go by. I saw what was going on. And I realized that what he needed most for his product was to emulsify it. I had about 10 years of experience with emulsifiers. So I thought at that time that all I had to do was emulsify that product because it wasn't emulsified. And that's why the alkalinity was getting free and burning and causing discomfort on the customers. Anyway, it took 9 months to solve his problem. Eventually, we did, and created the first emulsified hair straightener ever made, and that made all the difference because it was emulsified. It was unique. It was unique, not unique, but unified, and it stopped having that discomfort. It stopped the burnings, and it was great. All a person had to do was use it, and they would see the difference.
I now understand. I now understand what you mean by divinely called. Right place, right time, right teachings, right understanding, right scholarship, right chemical understanding of emulsification, and boom,
Yeah.
the presence of the divine.
Right. Anyway, but what that did for me, the day that he said we made the product and he did the experimenting with it. The day he said, "This is it, don't touch it," I just jumped up and said, "Well, we ought to market it." I never thought about marketing or anything like that, but I said we ought to market this. He asked me what will it cost. I gave him a total sum of $500. I knew I could borrow $250 because I had borrowed money before from this small loan company, and I knew I figured I could get another loan for $250. So I said $500. He wrote me a check for $250. But anyway, you probably know the story of how I got that. They wouldn't. The loan company I'd been a customer for maybe 2 or 3 years didn't give me the money, but I had to tell a little white lie. And I went to another branch of that company and told the loan officer that I needed $250 to take my wife to California on a vacation, and I got the money in 20 minutes.
Wow. Hillary, let me ask you a quick question. You've obviously written about the lives of a number of significant people in our community, and you've obviously studied history. Part of Hillary's formal education includes Princeton University, and she obviously lives in Philadelphia. Hillary, place Mr. Johnson's life for us in the proper historical context.
Thank you for asking that question. It's quite remarkable. It's not often that you get to sit with an almost centenarian. So Mr. Johnson was born in the Cotton South, and the story sweeps north. His mother brought him north through the Great Migration. He arrived in Chicago right at the onset of the Great Depression. He lives through the Depression years, returns to the Cotton South to visit his father and grandparents, comes back north, stays in Chicago. And then the story progresses through World War II, through the civil rights years. He started JPC in 1954, which is the year that we know as the beginning of the civil rights era. Brown versus Board was in 1954, so he started JPC right before Brown versus Board. The story sweeps into the 1960s, the Black Power and the Black Power arts movements, and then into the 70s, 80s, and beyond. So we had the opportunity, in parallel to his story, to share a lot of untold African-American history. The greats of Mr. Johnson's era and even younger, many of them didn't have access to mainstream publishing at that time because publishing and the media were not open to us or not open to our stories. We also had the opportunity to tell a lot of suppressed history and history that people still don't want us to know today. And it is causing them to do things like ban books and want to shut down libraries in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. So it's really important that this book is coming out now. And Mr. Johnson sensed that a Jim Crow 2 moment was coming. And so in the book, we were thoughtful about speaking to some of the conditions that we're actually experiencing right now. And there are a lot of lessons in the book for today's strivers, dreamers, and entrepreneurs, either because they intend to be entrepreneurs or life circumstances are now forcing them to consider other revenue streams that can help our community and the nation.
Hillary, white folks didn't want to touch our hair. So it gave birth to an industry of barbers and beauticians. I mean, white folks, Mr. Johnson, as you well know, didn't want to bury our bodies. And here comes Cage and Leak Funeral Homes and all of these people, Mr. Johnson, who at one time or another came through your front doors, sought your help and assistance to start their businesses. In other words, we did, in an odd kind of way, Hillary, Mr. Johnson, we turned to each other in segregation. Hillary?
I think that's a really important message right now. when so many things are happening in our community. And a lot of the call is, how can we help each other in a time when other people not only don't want to help us, they want to pull the rug out from under us. They want to deny our brilliance, our excellence, and block our access to mainstream markets. So some of the big lessons that I learned working with Mr. Johnson were around issues of mentoring and sponsoring each other and helping each other. We see Mr. Johnson be mentored by S.B. Fuller, who was one of the most successful Black business people in the country at the time. Mr. Fuller taught Mr. Johnson to identify his gifts and talents and to match his gifts and talents with a need in the world, and that God did not intend for him to be poor. We also see Mr. Johnson being mentored by William Faulkner. Dr. Faulkner was his minister, and his minister taught him that the struggle of climbing brings the growth, the personal growth and development, and also that a good man with money can do a lot of good in the world, which you've been talking to. And we also, I also learned a lot about how large Black Chicago's business community was, that there was a volume as thick as the Yellow Pages used to be, filled with Black businesses. And Mr. Johnson tells stories of how Black business owners came together to help each other learn more about how to build their business and how to access markets. And so some of these are principles and strategies that are very relevant to today.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, some final thoughts from Mr. Johnson, and hopefully in the final 2 minutes, we have 10-minute segment coming. I hope Mr. Johnson can offer all of us some hope. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Mr. George Johnson.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This ad is brought to you by Care for the Injured, which is not a law firm. Past results don't guarantee future outcomes. Recovery depends on case details. Did you or a loved one take the birth control shot Depo-Provera and later develop a brain tumor? You are not alone. Thousands of women in the U.S. have been affected and deserve compensation. Depo-Provera, a widely used birth control injection, has been linked to serious brain tumors like meningiomas. If you use Depo-Provera for at least a year and were diagnosed with a brain tumor, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Our network of attorneys fight for the rights of women like you, women who were never warned about the risk of birth control shots. Our caring legal team is standing by to help you get the justice and compensation you deserve. The sooner you call, the sooner we can begin working on your case. Call 800-256-1276 now for a free confidential case review. That's 800-256-1276. Call 800-256-1276.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise-news.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2024, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wager bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-652-1714. That's 800-652-1714. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-652-1714 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is none other than the Honorable George Johnson, one of the most profound and luminarious figures in American history in the last half of the 20th century. That's who he is. Our movements don't operate for free. They require resourceful, thoughtful, and conscious business persons to say, this makes sense. This makes sense for Black people. This makes sense for our community. Hillary, I'd like to hear from you some of the thoughts and benefits of the work environment people are still fighting for today. Before I ask Mr. Johnson a couple of final questions, and then hopefully he can conclude for us all on some hope. Hillary?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson was a tremendous trailblazer. So at a time when Black people were struggling to access mainstream employment, he was one of the go-to employers in Chicago. He offered his employees an above-market salary. He employed women all the way from the factory floor into the C-suite. He offered profit sharing for all his employees, healthcare benefits, on-site healthcare, paid vacation, 4-day holiday weekends, tuition reimbursement before the government gave a tax break for it, maternity leave with a guaranteed job upon return, and a subsidized company cafeteria so that people's paychecks actually made it home. So he was so far ahead of the workforce today, and he employed a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce and practices.
Hillary, that's 60 years ago.
60 years ago. This is why I say he's such a trailblazer and such a forerunner, and practice things we can't even wrap our heads around today.
Mr. Johnson, can you offer some advice to today's entrepreneurs? Obviously, you were born in Jim Crow. You lived through the latter half of Jim Crow and then witnessed the civil rights movement, obviously Brown versus the Board of Education, the death of Emmett Till. Your business was here in Chicago when that funeral was taking place, Leak Funeral Home, Cage, Slaughter. You've seen it all. Martin Luther King Jr. in Marquette Park, Jesse Jackson on Drexel Avenue. You've seen the ebbs and flows of how we've been treated over nearly a century of your life. We're living in some pretty difficult times right now. Share with your thoughts on how you persevered and how we can persevere.
Well, to go into business today, you've got to have a product that is superior to the competition that of the businesses that you're going into, and you got it has to be something that people need or want and that they can value. You got to have a burning desire to succeed, and you have to be willing to work your butt off. And I would say that you ought to have a goal to be the best in the business you choose. And to really help you to really help yourself, help people. Be the best in the field that you're in. Put your customers' interests ahead of your own. Help people. And if you serve your customers well, they're going to make you successful. So love your customers and do what I did. Follow the golden rule.
I think it's I remember when I was growing up to drive down the Dan Ryan Expressway and to see the sign of your business. It was so large, and you made a conscious decision that Black people needed to see this organization, to see this business, to better understand that we could too build businesses and be successful. And I think of the other model, which of course was one of your contemporaries, John H. Johnson, who built that building downtown on State Street. And I remember when we would drive by both buildings, your building and Mr. Johnson's building, Ebony and Jet, and obviously Afro Sheen and your company, JPC, it was the most amazing thing for a generation to be able to say that we could, that you represented the embodiment of human possibility for us. You set out to do that, didn't you, Mr. Johnson?
Absolutely. Mr. Fuller told me a long time ago that Black folks didn't think they could do what they see white folks doing. But if they saw Black folks doing something, they thought they can do that. And that was a great incentive.
Hillary, your thoughts on the significance of that kind of leadership in an era when people were telling us we couldn't be nobody? Here comes George Johnson saying, I am somebody.
I'm smiling because your father came to my high school in Cleveland, and I have a photograph of him. And we said, I am somebody. So representation matters, and even today. And so we believe that we can do what we see people who look like us do. People who look like like us create opportunities for other people like us when other people are not necessarily willing to do that. And it's important to see people who have such a vision for excellence, and not only excellence in terms of the products that they create and the way that they conduct their business, but also in terms of their treatment of humanity and their understanding of the importance of things like the golden morality and principles like the golden rule. So
Hillary, we're also talking about a man whose scope, while it may have been centered on the south side of Chicago, we're talking about hair care products that ended up over the entire continent of Africa, Caribbean, Brazil, Jamaica, locking our hair. I mean, Mr. Johnson was and is one of the most historic figures that has ever existed in African American community and life.
Yes, so his $250 initial investment, I believe by 2030 will be a $32 billion industry.
All of that's chronicled in his book, Afro Sheen, How I Revolutionized an Industry with the Golden Rule from Soul Train to Wall Street. George E. Johnson is the author with Hillary Beard. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Afro Sheen. I want you to get your book right now here on KBLA and at radio stations across the country. We are going to be promoting Mr. Johnson's work. It's all chronicled right here for our generation in the current time, what we need to do and why we need to do it. Mr. Johnson, maybe some closing thoughts for this generation.
Stay close to the Lord.
I do think we have to be centered. There is no doubt, Hillary, at this hour and at this time, that we need luminaries like Mr. Johnson to tell their story. And I hope those who are listening will reach out. Mr. Johnson, Hillary, how can we support Mr. Johnson in this particular endeavor in his work?
Well, I think we can support Mr. Johnson, support each other by purchasing AfroSheen, reading AfroSheen, and practicing the principles, not only following the golden rule as a spiritual principle and ethos within ourselves, but by working with each other to support each other and build businesses in a time when the world isn't feeling so friendly.
And there's nothing wrong with building them close to our community. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest has been Mr. George Johnson and Hillary Beard. Thank you for joining us. Until tomorrow.